A lot of our fantasy teams need saved right now, including some of my own. And so here are some players that are cornerstones on your fantasy team and what you should be doing with them at this moment in time. Starting with Travis Etienne. I have Travis Etienne in the Flock League. I'm upset. I am not a happy camper about Travis Etienne because I was like, okay, Travis Etienne's he's playing the Colts this week, right? So this is a guaranteed. He's going to smash matchup. I got to feel really good about it. Hooray. He comes out. What does he do? He has 12 points. The same freaking thing he did last game. 7 points the game before that. 12 points the game before that, right? And you've seen his carries every game this season. 12, 13, 11, and 6 carries. 6. Why 6 carries today? For 17 yards. 6 carries for 17 yards. This is a running back that I drafted in the second round. If you drafted him, you drafted him in the second or third round. What is happening in Jacksonville? 2 things. Number 1, Tank Bigsby is a better runner than Travis Etienne.
Better.
He just is. He's a better runner. And while you do have Tank Bigsby coming in and out carrying Travis Etienne this week, it is worth noting that when you're talking about the targets, which is important for running backs, especially in PPR leagues, Travis Etienne continues to get more targets, and he had 7 targets and 6 receptions for 43 yards. That's why he had 12 points. Because on the ground, he only had 1 point or 2 points almost. And he's only had touchdowns in the first 2 games of the season. He's only had 2 touchdowns total. It's straight up not going to cut it. The reason that Travis Etienne was really productive to begin last year was because that offense was much better as a whole. And they were scoring a lot of touchdowns. Those 2 things go hand in hand. And so as you've seen the Jaguars completely fall off a cliff, Doug Peterson doesn't really know what he's doing, I don't think. Travis Etienne's fantasy stock has taken a huge hit. I never thought we'd get to the point where you saw Tank Bigsby get this kind of work and take work from Travis Etienne. But every time you watch Etienne run the ball and every time you watch Tank Bigsby run the ball, it is very clear that he's a better runner. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm probably selling. Like, I straight up don't believe in Travis Etienne.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing. Like, are you really going to get something in return that's worth selling Travis Etienne for? That's my thing. Like, I'm selling, but am I selling for nothing? Absolutely not. So I'm shopping him.
Yeah.
Why don't we just put hold up on the graphic so that way people don't freak out and just scroll through and say sell, and they're like, I can't believe you're selling. Because like, I'm going to shop him, but I doubt I end up selling him because I feel like it's going to be a bunch of bad offers. I feel like it's going to be a bunch of bad running backs. And I feel like I'm just going to want to hold with the upside of Travis Etienne and the high floor of Travis Etienne. You do have to admit the one thing Etienne has going for him is he does have a pretty high floor. But it doesn't super matter when your ceiling is about the same as your floor. They're about the same.
Yeah.
There's no depth to this production, right? And he's getting 10 to 12 points every week. And so with Etienne, again, I don't feel confident. I want to sell. I don't want him on my team. I'm just being honest with you. I personally, this is our channel. I personally don't want him on my fantasy teams. If you do, go for it. And again, I'm probably going to hold him. I'm probably going to have to. But I don't want him. I do not want him.
Yeah, I want no part in Travis Etienne, and I didn't want to begin the season because I was concerned that his lack of efficiency that you saw last year was going to carry over to this year, and that he was going to fall off a cliff. And it's been pretty disappointing for his 5 weeks of the year, for sure. But the one interesting thing with Etienne, I feel like Etienne is kind of like a Tony Pollard, honestly. That's kind of where he's at his best, is the usage that he's getting now, where he is very effective when they do put him on the field a lot of times in receiving sets. And he gets you, 5, 10, maybe even 15 yards. And that's really, really good for him. It just is going to be dependent on, does he get a touchdown or not? If Bigsby keeps breaking away these touchdowns, then, that's going to suck for Etienne. We're not going to see that every single week. I'm more interested to see in future weeks how they're going to utilize both guys once they get into the red zone, like traditionally, because you didn't see a lot of that in the game against the Colts because they just had so much explosive playmaking ability since the Colts are incapable in the secondary. So that's something you want to keep an eye on. If you're an owner of Travis Etienne, if you want to hold him, I totally understand that. Definitely, I think shopping is probably the best way to go. And I think you're right. He's probably not a hard sell because you don't want to sell him ultra low, but shop for sure. If there's any crazy believers out there in Etienne who are willing to overpay than what his current price probably is in the market, I'd go ahead and capitalize. Another guy that we've got to talk about, we've got to talk about him at this point, is Jayden Reed, because is Jayden Reed just boom bust? Is he big play dependent? I feel like we were expecting some huge games from Jayden Reed with Jordan Love coming back. And honestly, I mean, when you're looking at his production through the first 5 weeks, 31 points, 5 points, 8 points, 23 points, 11 points. Like 11 points is good, but that only came from 6 targets and 4 receptions total, one of which was like a 60-yard reception. And he didn't get a ton of usage the rest of the game in a game that was built for him. Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs weren't even playing this week, and he straight up like was not nearly as productive as I thought he would be. For me, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here, right? With Jayden Reed, I think if you can get him at a discount right now, I would capitalize, and I would go and buy him, because I do think that Jayden Reed is better off when Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson are on the field. And when they do come back, when Romeo Doubs comes back from his suspension/injury, which is only going to last a game, right? When Christian Watson comes back from his, hamstring that he inevitably injures every single year, this team is going to be clicking on all cylinders from a play calling perspective, because you can utilize all those guys. Christian Watson, as limited as he is from a fantasy perspective, he is very, very impactful in the NFL game, in the way that they play those calls, the way that they call those plays. And Jayden Reed is a lot more productive when Christian Watson is on the field. So I think this was a little bit of a weird game personally. Was it concerning to see that when I expected him to have, a 25-point game, honestly? Yeah, it was disappointing. It was a bit concerning, but I think we got to kind of look beyond that and kind of look at the situation and see that, okay, it could be better with more guys on the field, which sounds counterintuitive, but trust me, I think it's going to pay off if you can buy him low.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think I'd label him as a buy as well. I really think Jayden Reed has been very productive. Again, obviously he's been very efficient this season, and you mentioned it. Like a lot of it has come from just a couple plays, but I still don't think people are sold on Jayden Reed. I think there are a lot of people that are very skeptical, right. And I think because of that, that's why you can buy him, right?
Yep.
Let's talk about DJ Moore now, because DJ Moore has had an up and down season, but his season has really gone up and down because of Caleb Williams, right? It's really Caleb Williams that we're seeing the fluctuations with. Because Caleb, obviously, everybody was writing him off too early. Everybody's saying he sucked. He obviously wasn't very good to start the year. And still, DJ Moore was producing some, because you saw in games like last week, he had 11 points because he had a touchdown. The weeks before that, he had 10, 10, and 8 targets. Didn't have any touchdowns, and so didn't get over 15 points. But today, he gets 2 touchdowns, and he gets to 27 points, and he had 8 targets, 5 receptions, and 105 yards. You're feeling really good about that. But this was because Caleb Williams played well. It has nothing to do with DJ Moore. DJ Moore is a great receiver, and he's been a great receiver all season, and he's going to be a great receiver on a great contract for the rest of the season. It has everything to do with Caleb Williams getting better. And that's exactly what's happening. Now, the one thing that you need to keep in mind here is they played the Panthers.
Exactly.
Right? And so they played the Panthers. And that's an important piece of information when you're evaluating the quarterback play of Caleb Williams.
Right.
But it's still an NFL game. It still contributes toward Caleb Williams' momentum moving forward.
Caleb Williams.
Yeah, Caleb Williams. His momentum moving forward. He could turn a corner. He has the talent. And if he can continue to put together even average quarterback play, I think DJ Moore personally, if you have DJ Moore, there's no way I'm like trying to sell high. I feel like that's why he's on here, is because a lot of people are going to say, oh, you sell high on DJ Moore. No, you hold DJ Moore. We'll put him as a hold. If you can buy him, you buy him. I'm comfortable buying DJ Moore.
Here's a question for you.
Okay.
If these are guys that I would imagine are in the same tier after this week, just with their full 5-week sample size, would you rather have Deebo Samuel or DJ Moore?
I mean, they're totally different styles of players in the same tier. You have the upside play in Deebo Samuel with a very crowded offense. You have DJ Moore, who's the clear number one, is going to get a lot of targets. Obviously, the better offense is San Francisco's. I lean Deebo Samuel because that's an overall better offense, but it's really close. I mean, again, you mentioned those guys are in the same tier. On one team, I'd take DJ Moore. Give me another one. Give me another hypothetical scenario.
Tyreek Hill.
I mean, I'd still take Tyreek over him.
Okay.
Go the other way.
the other way. Okay. Jayden Reed. I mean, we just talked about Jayden Reed. Would you ever
DJ
Jayden Reed or DJ Moore? You rather DJ Moore? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So like, again,
just a price check. I'm not saying that I'm
yeah.
one side or the other. I'm kind of on the fence with DJ Moore, honestly. I've been a big proponent for buying DJ Moore, expecting a game like this. And now that it's happened and it's been this exciting and this big, I don't know what to do because it's Carolina. Right?
Nathan is the guy I'm warning you about. You're the guy, Nathan. You're the killer in the house. Nathan is the dude that's trying to sell high on DJ Moore.
No, I'm not. I didn't say I want to sell high on him.
You just said that.
No, I said I don't know if I want to sell high on him or not. Now I said I don't know.
All right. Okay, so now you don't want to. Because did I talk you out of it?
No, don't.
But here's the
Bro,
thing. Like,
listen better, okay? I said I'm on the fence.
Okay, whatever. But either way, I think DJ Moore, if you're buying him, you know that his target floor is going to be super high, and that is really important right now in the NFL. And so
he's more expensive if you try to buy him now. I definitely think he's probably a hold because
I would categorize him as a hold.
You should have bought him before this game. You should have known that he was going to produce. Dude, I can't talk today.
I know. All right,
last week was a voice cracks. This time it's just I can't talk. So Josh Jacobs is going to be next. We're going to go back to the Packers game because Jacobs is another guy who was going 3-4 turn a lot of times, middle of the third before the season started. You're expecting him to get a bell cow workload. He has been getting a bell cow workload, and he's had a really nice floor of 11 points, 13 points. He had a 5-point dud against Tennessee with Malik Willis. No Jordan Love. Then he had a 10-point game, 16-point game. He finally gets a touchdown, right? We are so happy we can celebrate now because Josh Jacobs finally got the touchdown that we wanted him to get, right? Very Joe Mixon-esque from 2023 where he just was getting like 10 to 12 points. And you're like, okay, but where's the hyper production that we drafted him for? Josh Jacobs gets the touchdown. And he still isn't like that hyper productive. He only gets 16 points against a matchup in a matchup that's really friendly, playing the Rams defense, right? They've got Arizona next week. To me, I think this is a hold. You've probably got a decent amount of people who own Josh Jacobs where they're like, okay, Josh Jacobs finally gets a touchdown. There are a lot of truthers out there who still believe in Josh Jacobs that probably are going and targeting him and wanting to buy him. And then you've got the people that own Josh Jacobs that are freaking out because he gets a touchdown, only scores 16 points. Let me just sell him to a truther at price, right? I'm holding Josh Jacobs if you own him. If you are going and like shopping and trying to get Josh Jacobs, I would honestly kind of hold off as well and probably not overpay because there are significant like concerns that I have with him in that offense. And it's again, not because of his workload. He's just not super efficient, right? And he's not getting the receiving usage that I wish he was getting consistently. He had 6 targets against Minnesota, but he's had weeks with 0, 1, and 1 targets and 3 targets. Really only one game with like more than 4 or 5 targets. So to me, this is it's a bit concerning for his rest of season upside and ceiling. But again, seeing the touchdown, nice to see 16 points. Let's stick with him for now and see what he can do for some matchups that are going to be more friendly against Arizona, Houston, and Jacksonville.
Yeah, I totally agree. And another guy I think you stick with is Stefon Diggs. Look, we told you before the season we thought Stefon Diggs wasn't washed and we thought he was going to be a valuable contributor to your fantasy football team. We were correct.
Yep.
Stefon Diggs is somebody that even if you draft him 3rd, 4th round, you're feeling pretty good about it. The context here is, and what you really need to understand for this particular week and why he's a good hold here is because, as we mentioned, Nico Collins with the hamstring does change things. Stefon Diggs in this week's game against Buffalo had 14 fantasy points. He had 8 targets, 6 receptions, 82 yards. Stefon Diggs, he had a rushing touchdown last week, but this dude hasn't had a receiving touchdown since week 1. And he still put up games of 19, 18, and 14. As well as the 21-point game in week 1. You are feeling pretty good about starting Stefon Diggs.
Pretty nice.
And honestly, he is a good player on a good offense. You don't sell those types of players.
So here's why I put him on the list. And I wanted to pick your brain about this because you now are messing around with a Nico Collins hamstring injury that is certifiably lingering, right? He was struggling with this a couple weeks ago. He has re-aggravated it, and he will probably miss time. So with that in mind, you would assume by default that Stefon Diggs' price is going to go up higher than it ever was before.
Again, I think there were so many people in the offseason that were on the Stefon Diggs is wash train. I think people have too many. I think people have take lock. I think people are too stubborn. Personally, I think anybody who said Stefon Diggs is washed still thinks that he's washed and still thinks that everything that's happened to this point is a fluke. And how do I know that? Because I've seen it in the comments, because I've seen it on Twitter. I've seen it everywhere. People are stupid. And so because of that, including, you don't understand, I am people. I'm talking about me
you
and
are
Nathan.
people's.
I am people's. People think that people still don't accredit, Stefon Diggs. People don't think that this is because of Diggs. They think this is all still fluky, even though it's a 5-week sample size. So I personally don't think you're going to have a ton of people super high on Stefon Diggs. I still think you're going to have people be like, oh, when Nico comes back, he's going to be nothing. Like we haven't already seen 5 weeks of him with Nico Collins. So
Right.
that's why I'm not necessarily convinced that there is a super big market to sell high on him. Because obviously if you sell for a top end guy, you do it, right? Obviously you do that. I don't think that market is there. Do you think that market is there?
I'm just curious if the buy market is there, if there's people that are interested in buying Stefon Diggs, but that might not be the case. And at the end of the day, I'm still with you. I'm holding Stefon Diggs. I think you're in a good offense with CJ Stroud, who's able to provide plenty of volume. You saw it with freaking Noah Brown last year when Tank Dell and Nico Collins were out of the game. Noah Brown was going off.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be the case for Tank Dell and Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs probably going to be the top option there because he's playing mainly slot. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So what about Josh Downs? And I want to add one to this. What about Michael Pittman?
Michael Pittman. Let's start with Downs. Let's start with Downs. Let's not start with either of them. Let's start with Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson. Who's starting rest of season?
They're going to look, Nathan. We know one thing about the Colts. They're incompetent. They're going to start Richardson.
Yes. And I think that I think they are actually out of their mind enough to just go right ahead and just throw AR right back there in the lineup and suck for the rest of the season.
They absolutely will.
Josh Downs and Pittman are sells. Josh Downs,
absolutely they are.
Josh Downs mainly is a sell because honestly, Pittman wasn't that crazy productive against Jacksonville when they put up 34 points, and he wasn't getting a crazy amount of target volume consistently like Josh Downs was. Here's the one difference, the one glaring difference between Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson is that Joe Flacco can actually throw an accurate ball 5 yards down the field. 5 yards. Luckily, Josh Downs is generally 5 yards down the field, and he has some pretty good yak ability. Once Anthony Richardson is back on the field, Josh Downs will not be getting the ball 5 yards down the field because the ball will be 5 yards above his head. He's a sell if there's a market for him. Yeah. I guess that's the only downside is how many people believe that Joe Flacco is actually going to start for the rest of the season.
I don't even think
if there are any Flacco believers out there, I would probably see if you shop Josh Downs, stick with Michael Pittman because he is still the number one option that does. He brings a lot of defensive attention. Or he attracts a lot of defensive attention. And I still think he's probably going to be, he's the higher floor guy compared to Josh Downs once AR comes back, and they're going to utilize him more. He's more versatile where you can use him downfield. You can use him in the short to intermediate as well. So, but to me, I think I'm leaning sell for Downs.
Yeah, no, I think if you can get anything for both those guys, you just do it. I don't trust the Colts at all. So let's talk lastly about Chris Godwin. And with Chris Godwin, you've kind of seen really what a lot of people would classify as a fall back down to earth. But here's what I want to look at here, because it's 22, 24, 17, 12, and 11. So you saw him go up from week 1 to week 2. And then from week 2 on, it's 24, 17, 12, and 11. So he's going down, right?
Yeah.
But I don't want to focus on Chris Godwin's production here. What I actually want to look at is Mike Evans' production, because this is a lot more telling for what Chris Godwin's doing. The first 2 weeks, Mike Evans, 23 points. They both produced in week 1. But then Godwin had his best week in week 2, and Evans had his one of his worst weeks, 7.2 points against Detroit. Week 3, Godwin had his hand 17 points. You saw Mike Evans only have 3 points that week. But the past 2 weeks, what did Mike Evans do? Mike Evans had 3 touchdowns, 2 this week and 1 the week before.
Of course.
And here's the thing, when you see Mike Evans scoring touchdowns and getting, and actually the one thing with Mike Evans' last game the other night was he got a ton of targets, right? He had, it was
he only had
Philly.
7 targets.
Against Philly, he had 14. So that was a little bit uncharacteristic. And that contributed to more yards and a couple more catches, honestly. But he only had 7 targets against Atlanta. And again, 2 of his 5 catches were touchdowns. When Mike Evans produces like this, you're going to see Chris Godwin perform at a more average-ish level. But we know this about Chris Godwin. His floor is 11 to 12 points. Right. And when he gets a touchdown, he's got 17 to 23 point upside. If anybody has devalued Godwin because of the last 2 weeks, I'm buying. Again, it's super simple. Fantasy football is super simple. Good players on good offenses. Chris Godwin's a good player. The Bucs offense is good. Baker Mayfield has looked good. So with all those three things being true, if anybody devalues him at all based on what's happened the last couple of weeks, I will definitely go buy Chris Godwin on my fantasy team. He's somebody you're very comfortable starting every week just because of the offense he's in. Purely because of the offense he's in. Also, the division is a pretty good division for him to be in as well. I think the schedule for the rest of the year is going to lend. I think they're going to have a productive fantasy year, both of them, Evans and Godwin. So again, send offers for Godwin. If anybody's lower on him at all because of the last 2 weeks, I'm snatching him up for sure. I'm sure you agree with that one.
Yeah, I totally agree. 100%. Great floor.
Yes.
Great floor.
So there you go. It's getting to the point now where you're going to have to make some big decisions on these guys. And it's going to get really close to make it or break it time for the playoffs for fantasy, especially. And we're getting to that time of the year. So I hope this video helps you do that. Make sure you do the two things for us. Make sure you drop a like. Make sure you subscribe. The two thing. Subscribe and like. Both of those things help us out a lot. I know I can't talk. We're recording our third video right now. So we're in it right now. And I'm on vacation, so I'm not in that mindset. But if you enjoy the dedication of me me dragging all my stuff down here, make sure you like and subscribe. But appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you later.